So to continue from our previous segment, I'm going to start with the question of, to whom does the adopted child belong? And that question is valid for all of us. First and foremost, the child belongs to those who gave it life. And therefore it's very important for the adoptive parents to have a healthy relationship with the biological parents. When I say healthy relationship, in most cases there's no contact between the adoptive parents and the biological parents. Often there are countries that are sitting in between. Often the child has been adopted from a nation that has great needs, a nation that's either very poor or is war-torn. And so there are absolute needs there to have orphaned children or children whose parents simply cannot look after them because of the circumstances of war and extreme poverty, to have those children's needs met. But there's a much deeper question there with to whom does this child belong, and about the relationship between the biological parents and the adoptive parents. I recall many years ago, and I will change some of the elements of the story in order to protect the privacy of individuals. I worked with a couple who had problems with their adoptive child, and this child was having some problems with drinking and not completing studies at university, and having huge difficulties at university and being very, very rebellious. It was revealed that the child was adopted, and I asked them questions, and I asked questions about the country of origin of the child. And with that I asked, what access does your child have to the culture of the country of origin? To which the father responded, that country has nothing to offer him. Quite aggressively. And I was rather shocked. And I said, except of course for life, sir. And so when adoptive parents have a negative relationship to the country of origin or to the parents of origin, that simply amplifies the shame of the adopted child. So the father in this case was looking upon this war-torn nation as being less than the nation that he belonged to, and therefore that country had nothing to offer his child. And I said, well, except for a language, an ethnicity, a culture, a religion, all of which was different to the country that he had been adopted into. I said, so your child is suffering from lack of identity. I said, so he's a different race to you. That was then established. The child was a different race. And so it's really important that parents have a healthy relationship, that adoptive parents have a healthy relationship to the biological origins of the adopted child. Of course, that's a fairly extreme case, but very often children have been adopted from mothers who are perhaps substance abusers in some way, drug addicts, prostitutes, or teenage mothers. So individual women, that society in general, in the past and also in the present, sadly, look down upon. So how would that be for you as the adopted child if your adopted mother looked down upon your biological mother and said, oh, well, she was only a teenager? That if the adopted mother has the same moralistic judgment towards your biological mother than that perhaps your biological grandmother or grandfather had towards your mother. How would that be? I have rescued you from a bad mother. In other words, you're bad too. Everything that created you was wrong and bad. Where you come from is bad. how successful will the child be in not feeling, I'm bad, I'm wrong, there's something wrong with me? Mhm. And so there is a deep inner movement here, and it is one of inner respect and inner submission to the biological parents. Literally an inner movement, and it can be an outer movement. And this is work that I've done with great pleasure many, many times, of guiding the adoptive parents to find a soul relationship with the biological parents, to literally bow to those parents in deep gratitude for the gift of the child that was given to them. When they stand back, when they stand back and look at the mother as someone who has fallen short in some way, that she is a disgrace, that she's merely an addict or a prostitute, or some poor woman who suffered a war. So when they either look down upon her or have a patronizing attitude towards her, or believe that they are somehow now the saints, are better than, have come in to rescue her and her child by taking the child away, then the very life and the very conception of life of that child, the very existence of that child, is disrespected. And so it is then to look at the creation of this child and bow to it, and bow to it as an act of God. That this life came into existence through a power that is greater than myself. Who am I to say that I am the better one here? Who am I to say that I am the greater one here? And I'm not saying any of this to put down the actions of the adoptive parents. Whilst in the previous recordings I've brought into question some of the unhealthy motivations that can come from adoptive parents, this is not about painting adoptive parents as bad people. There are many, many foster parents and adoptive parents who are doing excellent, sterling jobs at raising children and giving them a lot. So this is not about bashing anyone. This is about bringing into an excellent, healthy relationship, the relationship in which an adoptive child can grow beyond the circumstances of shame that they were most likely born into. How do we, as the adoptive parents, create a healthy relationship that acknowledges the divine grace of the birth of this child and doesn't either consciously or subconsciously further shame the child? And so in reality, this is about elevating the position of the biological mother to that of a goddess, to that as the mother of the divine child, to give her that much honor and respect, irrespective of who she is and why she did what she did. That the fact that the gift that came to you through the loins of this woman, it is a gift, is not a lesser gift or a greater gift, it is just a gift like any other gift. But it is the gift of the life of a child. And so when we say that the gift giver is less than, or that the country or the nation or the ethnicity is less than me, then as adoptive parents or as the social workers working within adoption, then what we're doing is we are adding shame to the life of that child. And so then that becomes two whole families that have said, there's something wrong with you. And so that's part of my message, and that's what I want to avoid there. We are not islands. We live in an ocean of consciousness, and we are all connected to one another. And so our connection to our biological parents doesn't ever go away. irrespective of whether we remember who they are or not, irrespective of whether we've been told anything about them or not. There are countless cases of adopted children who have eventually found their biological parents or biological siblings and discovered that they have some quirks of personality, or they have some favorite foodstuffs that they have in common with them, mannerisms even. Mannerisms. There is a lot more to our biology than we currently understand, but there is a lot more in existence there through the chakras and the chakra codes that connect us across space and time. And so we belong to our mother and father, whether or not we have actually met them. And so for the adopted child, we then belong to two families. But the strength and the bond of blood is far, far stronger. And therefore it is most important that the adoptive parents have a healthy relationship to the biological parents. And that healthy relationship can be created irrespective of whether the adopted parents have actually met the biological parents. This can be an inner movement. And this is one of the specialities of the work that I do with individuals about healing family systems. It doesn't have to be done in a workshop. It can be done working as a family. I've done that a few times, gone and spent a few days with families to work on these issues live with individuals. I've also done them in workshop settings, but of course not everybody wants to work in an open public workshop. And so these relationships can be created energetically, psychologically, emotionally, and it is through the hand of grace that that's done. Can you imagine what our world would be like that if every mother on this planet was treated as the goddess, honored as the goddess, no matter who she is or where she came from? Can you imagine if that happened? What would our world be like? What would our world be like if the mothers who were raising all of the boys on the planet were not subjected to misogyny, were not subjected to the tyranny that many women have suffered, were not subjected to being made to feel ashamed of their bodies and of their sexuality? This is at the root cause of many, many adoptions. The unjust shaming of women, their bodies, and their sexuality. And so, if each woman could be honored as the goddess, not superior to the man, but simply honored as the goddess, and if that goddess, in being honored in that way, is raising the boys, would the next generation of boys be hating women? I don't think so. Would the next generation of girls be willing to betray other women? Because within that whole cycle of misogyny, it is generally the women who betray other women first, before the men do. And so the subject of adoption contains really all, or at least many, of the issues of healing of humanity, not just for adopted children. But everything that we do to women and to children is contained within the cycle and the story of adoption. Everything. And so if the world can look at adoption and look at what's happening, looking at the child where the child is forgotten, the child is used to fulfill someone else's needs. When we look at the story of adoption, we can see all of the injustices that take place across the world, particularly towards women and mothers. So yes, indeed, it is a very important topic and one that's close to my heart.